Ladies and gentlemen, in this Elden Ring video, we're going to take a look at the OG Carian Knight build. We're going back to basics using the good old sword and board, dealing massive posture damage when parrying enemies, to having a plethora of magic to dispatch bosses. This was a fun one to make. Let's get into it. So for our Carian Knight build, we mainly focus in on the hand-to-hand combat first, looking to parry our enemies for any stance breaks when possible, to get the most use out of our talismans that we're going to be going over in a little bit. Now, a very fun combo I end up using with this build more often than not is to go for that stance break with either a parry or a great blade phalanx, and once you get that critical strike off, if that enemy's not dead already, this is going to give you plenty of time for you to fully charge up your Carian Grandeur Ash of War. So this combo is extremely potent and is absolutely going to chunk the health bar off anything that we're going to come across here in the lands between. So let's talk about our main hand weapon and what we're carrying on the offhand. Our weapon of choice is obviously going to be the Carian Knight sword to keep it nice and thematic with the build. Not only that, but it's a fantastic intellect weapon you guys gotta try out. This straight sword scales with a D in dexterity, a D in intellect, and a C in strength, with the attributes required being 10 in both dexterity and strength, and an 18 in intellect. So we can actually use this sword very early on in the game. Now, what makes this weapon really stand out is its built-in Ash of War, as we mentioned at the top, Carian Grandeur. This is a 3-staged charge spell that will absolutely eradicate whatever's on the other end of it. It's a very powerful spell that works especially well with their stagger playstyle that we're going with. So if you end up parrying an attack and you stagger your enemy, by the time he gets back up, you're going to have a fully charged spell awaiting him just to put him back on his ass. And just in case you don't remember exactly where to get this sword, here's the location on the map, and it's going to be in a chest on the back of a carriage. And do me a big favor, if you're enjoying this video, consider hitting that like button, subscribing, ringing a notification bell for more of this coming your way. It helps me out very much. Thank you so much, guys. Now, in the same hand, we're going to be rocking the Carian Regal Scepter with a sorcery scaling of 331 and an S scaling in intellect, meaning this staff packs a serious punch. But wait, why are we using this staff in the same hand as our main hand weapon, you might ask? Well, because this is going to allow us the use of Scholar Shield. This ability allows us to enhance our shield's damage mitigation even further. Not only that, but it makes it for a quick swap to use this staff as another option of close hand-to-hand combat damage with the built-in Ash of War spinning weapon. This is another huge source of damage, boys, and is still scaling with intellect. So no matter what you're doing or what weapon you're caught using, you're almost never going to be caught off guard with this build. And if you really want to see how powerful this Ash of War is, I made a Spellblade video a while back covering the spinning weapon in more detail, so check that out if you're interested. Now, the Carian Regal Scepter you're going to get later on in the game, since it has a 60 intellect requirement to use. So another absolute banger of an option in the meantime is going to be the Carian Glintstone Staff. And this, from my testing, will give you about a 20% increased damage output, comparing it to other early game staffs like the Demi-Human Staff or the Meteor Staff. Now, in our offhand, I choose to go with the Kite Shield with the requirement of only 12 in strength to use, and is going to be providing us with 100% physical damage mitigation. It also has a 56 in guard boost, which I think is one of the highest you can get with just a 12 strength base shield. The Ash of War that we're attaching to this, of course, is Carian Retaliation, allowing us to block and redirect any magic sent our way. Now, feel free to swap this out with the Carian Knight Shield, obviously, as it fits the theme. I just personally like how the Kite Shield looks a bit better. Now, for our armor, we're obviously going with the Carian Knight set, but I actually swapped out the pants for the Haslow's Greaves, as it just matches so perfectly. But it's all about the fashion for me, boys, so pick what floats your boat. Now let's move along and talk about some talismans, shall we? We're going to go over what I would prioritize first and what you could potentially swap out depending on your playstyle after. First up is the Green Turtle Talisman, such a staple to almost any build, but we're spamming melee for single target, magic for some AoE, and all those evasive maneuvers to survive. This will help us replenish that stamina a bit quicker. Next up is the Dragon Crest Great Shield. Now this is our first completely optional talisman to go over, as I personally play in more of that hand-to-hand combat playstyle, so having additional physical damage mitigation to me is absolutely priceless. And the fact that I properly can't dodge anything and get hit by almost everything pushes me even further into the use of this talisman. However, if you're not like me and you're actually good at the game, I would suggest Godfrey's Icon, which will enhance our charged spells and skills. And since both of our Ashes of War alone are charged spells that are going to benefit from this, this is a major upgrade to keep on your radar for this build. Next one up is the Graven Mass Talisman. greatly raising the potency of all of our spells, which synergizes very well with this build, even if you're playing with more of that melee mindset. As we said at the top, any skills or ashes of war we're going to be using with this build is going right back to spell damage, making great use out of this talisman. And the final talisman that I choose to use is actually the Assassin's Crimson Dagger. This makes it so any critical hits will restore your health. The reason behind me choosing this specifically is because I mainly focus on breaking enemy stances with this build, whether from our spells to our parries, heavy charged attacks. This will have a lot of uptime if you decide to play that way. Now, if you're not interested in any of that, I would swap this out with whatever you find yourself leaning into. You want to use more magic? Go dip into the Carian Filigreed Crest. Are you in the mood for more spell slots? Throw on the Moon of Noxtella. Or do you just want some bigger, badder base damage? Throw on the Star Scourge Heirloom to boost your strength a bit more. Really, with this build, find whatever you enjoy playstyle wise and craft your talismans around that. So up next, let's jump into our spells that we're going to be using and our wondrous physique. First on our list is Scholar's Shield. Now, as I progressed through the game and got a lot more comfortable parrying, I ended up using this a lot less often, so swap this out if you feel the same way. But next we have what I consider one of the most important spells on the list, and that's Glint Blade or Great Blade Phalanx. I use Great Blade just to provide us with as much posture damage as possible, and I just love this spell because nothing's going to be able to jump you. If anything's hidden around the corner, this spell is going to give away their position, so you're always going to have that upper hand. Next up is Glintstone Pebble. For day-to-day use and to thin out most of the enemies out in the landscape, we also are going to have Adula's Moonblade, which is an extremely powerful spell for any AoE situation you might come across. We also have Loretta's Great Bow or Mastery for our lengthy option, as well as Rani's Dark Moon, since our staff will be increasing the damage of any moon sorcery. Now from here, to each its own. You can add whatever you want, but I end up going with the get out of jail free card, the classic Terra Magica into Common de Jure. You really can't beat that. I like to have these two sitting on the back burner in case we walk into a fight that just needs to be nuked down. Our wondrous physique, we have the classic Magic Shrouded Crack tier and the Cerulean Hidden tier, not only boosting our magic damage, but eliminating the mana cost of everything for a short period of time. The last thing to finalize our build is our attribute points. Now, this is a very attribute point hungry build, as we're gonna need both intellect and strength to increase our damage. We want vigor to increase our health. We want mind to increase the mana pool, and a bit of endurance to increase your equip load and stamina. Now my character's sitting at like level 200, but I'll show you what it should look like at level 50. But I currently have 63 in health, mind's at 47, endurance is at 21, strength's at 70, dexterity 15, but we really don't need that at all, and 74 in intellect. Now for a level 50, you should have around 20 health, you should have around 15 to 20 in mind. For endurance, 14 is a good starting point, 20 in strength, 10 in dexterity to just be able to use the weapon we want to use, and everything else goes straight into intellect, which should probably be around 30. Now moving forward, as you level, we're going to want to prioritize strength and intellect to increase our damage, and play around with mind and endurance a bit to see what you feel most comfortable with. But I want to know what you guys think. What playstyle will you enjoy most with this build? Are you thinking about leaning more into magic or melee? Would you even consider using this build for one of your next playthroughs? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you liked the video, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more, and I will see you in the next one. Toodles!